Alright guys, what we're doing is a little continuation of the video for the wiper cam over fix. In the past I extended the length of this bar so that it would accommodate the windows spacing from center of center to the wiper, because they weren't quite right and they used really sloppy tolerances. My wiper was camming over. And by what I mean by that is there's a little slot in here, a little tab on this portion here, and there's an ear on each side. So when this wiper would swing this way, the shaft would come just above center or even straight and past, and then what would happen is, instead of cycling back, it would grab a hold of it in windy conditions, or if you caught any kind of a gust from a truck or anything like that, and then that would grab it and twist it, and it would jam in such a fashion that it would pull up against this tab and lock the wiper arm in a cammed over position, which because of worn linkage and weird tolerances, then your wiper would lock and it would jam itself down against the cowl, and then basically you're taking the arm off under pressure, and it's a real pain in the butt. You're driving home with one wiper or no wipers. So in this addition to that fix, I'm going to add a tiny bit of material on the side of this tab just to help keep it from traveling too far, so that it doesn't go to this full position, because this way it practically goes flat. And also I'm going to lengthen the bar here, like the, I'm not sure what you want to call that, but this portion, so that this wiper arm only travels a set distance based on the gearing from the wiper motor and the length of the other arm. I want to increase this length, which is going to move this point farther from the center of the wiper pivot shaft, which is going to increase the radius, meaning that this wiper arm, although it travels the same linear distance, is only going to rotate, it's going to rotate less. It's going to move a smaller amount angularly, if that makes sense. So basically it's just not going to travel as far, which is going to reduce the likelihood of cam over, and because it's not going to be on such a steep angle at the edges, it will be able to take a little bit of a wind force, because there's still going to be play in the linkage, but it won't be all the way at the point where it can get away from us. So stay tuned. I'm going to cut this and weld it up and see how we make out. Okay, so what I've got here, I want to make sure that when I cut this, I cut it the right amount. I'm going to take a slice right through here, and when I do that, I'm going to remove a tiny bit of material. I'm going to use a 3/64 of an inch thick zip wheel, and that's going to remove a tiny bit of material, but then I'm going to position this so it's a little bit longer, which is going to leave me with a gap. And in order to fill that gap, I'm going to use the welder, and I'm simply going to use a spoon to keep the weld in the right spot. If you don't have a spoon, take an old piece of copper pipe, beat it flat, and there's your welding spoon. It's free, that way you can throw it away if you screw it up. More importantly though, is the length of this portion right here, of that little bar that we want to actually increase. I took these old calipers, I measured it. It's approximately 812 thou, 1 inch, 812 thou long from outside to outside. So when I weld this, I want to have it a little bit longer. I made that reference there. The other thing I'm doing is, because my memory is terrible on a good day, I wanted to know where this thing was going to sit, so I just simply drew it on the plate here, so I know that I don't accidentally install it the wrong way. So follow along. We'll see how this goes. Okay, so now the challenge is going to be getting this to a spot where it's going to increase its length. We want to do, I'm guessing, maybe 60 or 70 thou increase in length, which is pretty significant on this old part. So that means I'm going to set my old calipers here to that new length. So I'm going to add, say, 65 thou or something like that, roughly. And I'm going to position this just to take a look and see how much I actually have to fill. So after using the zip wheel, you can see I've got to fill about 100 thou. And if you actually do the math, it's right around there somewhere. So that's the space. I'm not sure if you can see that. Hopefully you can. The easiest way to do that without trying to weld a whole bunch of crap steel in there is going to be to simply put this in position. I'm going to hold the spoon underneath and I'm going to build this up a tiny bit with the welder, and then I can file that to the right length, or I'm going to use my zip wheel because I'm lazier than filing, and then that'll get it so I can have the other piece just about touch it. Then I can bevel it, fill it with weld, grind it off smooth, and it should look pretty good. Follow along. Pull the welding spoon a bit. Okay, so you can see I've added a bit of weld here. I probably added easily 100 thou to the length of this this bar, and that's going to allow me to clean this up, get rid of all the slag and crap off of it, measure it, and then grind this back to the right dimension so that this piece can be welded back on in the right spot and give us the extra length we desire. Welding it with vice grips is going to be the easiest way. You can see that I've built up the weld. You can see the dark spot in the middle. That's roughly how much I added. And I took the zip wheel, ground it down until the measurement was as close as possible, and now I'm just going to put a small bead on it and clean it up. Okay, you get the idea. It's pretty straightforward. And that puts it farther out. I'll check the straightness in a second. And we'll see. I'll check for how flat this. I'll check this in a second. I'll get this straightened out so that it's nice and square. Kind of put it back in the same spot. but what you can see now is the overall length. When I measure it, is approximately right around 1.890. So that puts me at about 78 thou that I increased it in length. So that 78 thou is the distance from the the 78 thou that I increased it lengthened this bar, which now is going to give me the same amount of throw this way, but less angular travel on each cycle. So I'm just going to clean up the weld, make it a little bit smoother, and then we'll see how it goes. I'm quite happy with that. We're going to clean it up a little bit more here just to get some of the old grease off. I'm going to do the weld on this tab next. Okay, you can see that I've widened it just a little bit, and that should be enough to give it the travel restraint that I need. So I know that this is going to look backwards from what it normally positions at, but I want the mirror image. So you can see the tab that locates in this little slot. So when that drops in, that's where it would sit. What I want to do is I want to have this stop with more of an angle in it in a worst case scenario, and that way it stops below the zero plane, if you will, because before it was traveling almost flat and that was allowing it to cam over. So now worst case, it's stopping it in a position where it can still travel back, but we've also increased the length of this, so its effective angular rotation should be a lot smaller, and that will decrease the wiping area of the window. It'll shrink that area just a little bit, so instead of maybe being here, it might be here now, and I'm quite happy with that because I don't sit in that side anyway. Alright, so wipers all back in. As I said, I lengthened the distance from the center to the center of the pin so that the travel would be a little bit less, and then put it all back together. So before, if I were to have this thing running and the wind would catch it, this arm would be able to come right down and fold down and jam against the cowl, and if it came out here and the wind caught it, it would jump around and such, because the shaft, or sorry, the bar that goes across was originally too long. We fixed that. It was a whole lot better, but it still had some issues, and so now that I've done this mod, I'll show you. So the travel's only a tiny bit different. I've maybe lost an inch overall, but I can push on it and it doesn't jam it anymore, because before that would have just folded right down. Anyways, pretty happy with it. The old Jeep will have windshield wipers in the rain again. If you need some help, just message me and I'll explain what I did.